It is your prisonplanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here in this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal.
Welcome to the Alex Jones Show. It is Monday, January 21st, 2013, inauguration day of our, well, the second coming of our Lord and Savior, according to the mainstream media. Yes, all hail Obama, all praise Obama. And you may note something about history. And by the way, I'll give you a rundown of the guest we have coming up today. It's a hard-hitting show. We've got a lot of breaking news, a lot of hard-hitting guests as well. But just this inauguration thing, if you probably notice it throughout history, the less legitimate a government is, the more pompous and over-the-top the ceremonies are for its illegitimate leader. And that's what we saw here today just a few minutes ago with the Obama inauguration. A band playing, all these people. I'm surprised they didn't have stiff-legged soldiers marching around with the Heil Hitler type of sign going out there. You know, I'm surprised they didn't have 57 Air Force jets and nuclear missiles on vehicles rolling down the road. And, I mean, anything, you know, people holding up the emperor's fake invisible clothes. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't just go all out because it's so ridiculous. The complete illegitimacy of this government now and this Obama administration. Think about it. If Ron Paul had been elected president, do you think Ron Paul would have wanted all this just pompous celebration of him? No. Ron Paul would say, we don't need a party. We don't need just all this show. What we need is to have a quiet, dignified confirmation that the Bill of Rights is alive in America today. All we need is to not have a man in charge, but principles of liberty in charge. And there we go for those watching on prisonplanet.tv, a picture of the inauguration. Oh my gosh, the draping of the flags. This looks like something pulled right out of Nazi Germany. I mean, it is, put that back up on the screen, guys, and show me some more photos, because I was actually driving in during some of this. I didn't see it all. This looks like a Hitler inauguration. It looks exactly like it. You just change the flags to a different, you know, Nazi Germany flag, and that's it. And the postures of the people are the same. The pompousness, the arrogance is the same. This is sick. It is sick where this country is going, folks. And just to remind us, Obama has been tweeting out now this morning saying, I'm honored and grateful that we have a chance to finish what we started. Our work begins today, he says. That's the quote from Obama that he tweeted out. Our work begins today. Oh, what work? Let's talk about that. The work of dismantling the U.S. economy, the work of destroying our jobs, the work of essentially revoking the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and, of course, completely ignoring the 10th Amendment. The work of turning our airports into Nazi police state security zones with naked body scanners. Yeah, I know they say they pulled those, but they're replacing them with all millimeter wave machines. So the announcement that the TSA is pulling those scanners is a bit of a hoax. They're just replacing them with other machines. So what is Obama's work really in this country? What has he done in the last 4 years that he's going to continue? Look at it. Take an honest look at what he has done without even thinking about political affiliation. Unemployment is up. We've got 128 million Americans now living on the government, dependent on the government. And for some reason, those people are still even allowed to vote. Why should people who are living on the government be allowed to vote to control the revenues of the taxpayers who are actually contributing to society? Why should the takers be able to control the outcomes of elections in a free nation? It doesn't even make any sense. Anyway, all that, much more straight ahead, plus some hard-hitting guests, like I said, and all the breaking news from today right here on The Alex Jones Show. Stay ahead. We'll be right back. All right, it is The Alex Jones Show on Monday, January 21st, 2013, Inauguration Day, and also Martin Luther King Day. We've got comments on the inauguration as well as Martin Luther King and his desire to carry concealed and his support for the right of self-defense. And I think, by the way, this is Mike Adams filling in for Alex. Alex will be back tomorrow. I'm just the fill-in host here, and thanks for continuing to have me on, everybody. I appreciate your support. I'm just here fighting for liberty. That's it. That's why I'm here. So we've got a bunch of news coming up on gun control, on the economy, on issues like this one. And a Harvard Medical School professor is seeking a, quote, adventurous woman to give birth to a Neanderthal man that they're going to implant in her body by reconstructing the DNA of Neanderthals. How much more evidence do you need yet that we're violating the will of the Creator? It's not just GMOs with plants and corn. I mean, now they're gonna actually try to have a woman give birth to a Neanderthal, and then what? What are they going to do then? What are you going to do with the Neanderthal? You're going to make it president? I mean, what do you do with a live Neanderthal? It's insane. This is a violation of nature, and it's going on from every angle. But let me give you a quick rundown before I get too far into this. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we have as a guest author Max Velocity. Yes, Max Velocity. That is his call sign. He's the author of this book, Contact, a tactical manual for post-collapse survival. And the reason I'm having Max Velocity on is because he served in the British Army as well as the United States Army, and he is now a U.S. citizen, but he's one of those rare individuals who has perspective from both the UK and the U.S., as well as being well-informed on survival and the Patriot movement in the United States. So that should be a fascinating interview. Don't miss that from Max Velocity. In the next hour, we've got Sheriff Denny Peyman. He was on last week with Alex Jones. He is that sheriff. I believe he's from Kentucky, if memory serves me correctly. He's the sheriff that posted that now famous YouTube video where he was almost brought to tears talking about the Founding Fathers and the sacrifice that they made in order to bring us the liberty and the freedom that we are desperately trying to protect today. And then in the third hour, we're going to be joined by Jon Rappoport for a few minutes with some additional comments and updates on the psychiatric police state that has now been implemented in the United States. But getting back to what is actually happening today, and real quickly, Lance Armstrong books are being moved to the fiction section of a library in Australia. They've now decided that Lance's entire history is complete fiction. Yeah, so they're moving them to the fiction section, which seems appropriate. But the real reason that I bring that up is because Barack Obama is the Lance Armstrong of politics. Think about that for a second. Why is Barack Obama the Lance Armstrong of politics? Well, Barack Obama is a highly charismatic person. He's a good-looking person like Lance Armstrong. I know some of you might argue with me, but I'm saying across the board, a lot of people look at Obama, at the way he speaks, at the way he carries himself. He has charisma. So does Lance Armstrong. They've both got charisma. But what else do they have in common? They're both lying to you. That's all they know how to do is lie and deceive in order to climb their way to the top of positions of power and influence. They use the media to manipulate the public. And they are indignant against their accusers and whistleblowers. And they say things like, oh, how dare they even suggest that I was doping, or or in Obama's case, how dare anyone suggest that he was going to sign the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which of course he helped write, or his attorneys did, his administration did, and then he signed. We have been infected with a culture of charismatic liars, psychopaths, sociopaths, who all they know how to do is lie in order to get to the top. They do not honor ethics. They do not honor spirituality. They typically don't believe in a creator. They don't believe in the human soul. They don't believe in an afterlife. They don't believe in judgment, that any of us are ever going to be judged for our actions. All they know how to do is live as charismatic parasites, living off the goodwill of people who are easily manipulated into supporting them. That is Lance Armstrong, in my opinion, and that is Barack Obama, in my opinion. And I think one reason Obama is so dangerous is because he's so charismatic. He's far more charismatic than Bush ever was. I mean, you can't look at Bush and say charisma. No. The last person who had this kind of widespread charisma was probably Bill Clinton. And also another highly accomplished liar. These people are all liars. But they're believable liars. They know how to lie with such apparent credibility that they sucker people into it. Even we had the Obama phone lady here sitting right there in this office, what was it, last week with Alex or the week before, and she was not aware that Obama lied about raising your taxes. She was not aware that Obama lied about not taking away your guns. But once she became informed about that, her position changed very quickly. Once she became aware of the truth, she actually began to start questioning some of her own support for Obama. So that's just one example of what happens when people actually collide with the truth. You know, the truth that Alex Jones says to them. And by the way, I think, and I'm going to try to approach this topic with all seriousness. I think it is time, and this is my opinion, this is not Alex Jones' opinion, this is not InfoWars' opinion, but I think it is time that we began to make a list of all those who are enemies of the Bill of Rights, who are enemies of America. Anyone who has publicly advocated the stripping away of your Second Amendment rights or your First Amendment rights, or who calls for the abolishment of the Constitution, or who calls for destroying the Bill of Rights, or forfeiting all of the rights that are granted to you under the Bill of Rights. I'm talking about people on the news. I'm talking about news anchors. I'm talking about writers. It's time we made a list. Now, you might say, what's the purpose of this list? The purpose, in my opinion, should be eventually, as the patriots restore the Republic in America, because I believe that's what's coming, we must arrest these people on the list and strip them of their citizenship. And here's why. If they do not believe in the Bill of Rights and they would want to strip you of your Second Amendment rights, then what right do they have to even call themselves Americans? If they do not believe in your rights, they forfeit their own. So anyone who is out there speaking out against the Constitution, speaking out against the Bill of Rights, is technically an enemy of America. If they do not believe in the Founding Fathers, they do not believe in the very principles, the philosophies, the ideas that gave us the great abundance, the innovation, the freedom, and the liberty to become the greatest nation on our planet. If they do not believe in those things, they are not Americans. They are not Americans. And they are trying to destroy America by turning it into a nation where none of us have those rights anymore, where we don't even have the separation of powers anymore, where the executive orders from one president, whether it's Obama or some future president, can override Congress and override representation and override public debate on issues that really matter to our day-to-day lives. I say, because I'm an advocate of nonviolence, I say we make a list now. And we put these people on this list with the intention of having them arrested and stripped of their citizenship. Take their passports, take their IDs, put them on a list. Do not ever enter this land of the free again. You are barred for life from the Republic of America. Have two ships waiting, one on the East Coast. The ship on the East Coast sails to Havana. You can get on that ship, or the ship on the West Coast sails to North Korea. You can get on that ship. It's your choice, because it's a land of the free. So you're free to choose which ship you want to leave on. And then we kick these people out of America. We send a message that says if you're going to be an American, if you're going to be on the media in America, if you are going to have any position of power in America, if you're going to be a member of Congress and vote on bills, a member of the Senate, then you must support the philosophies of freedom and liberty and justice upon which this great republic was originally founded. And I want to put that idea out there with all necessary and justified force. I don't mean violent force, I mean dedication is what I mean. Because again, this is the nonviolent way to do this. There are some people out there that are maybe more radical that would say they should shoot those people. I say no. No, we must operate with dignity. We must operate with honor. We must adhere to the principles because of being philosophically correct and of nonviolence, because we are in the right. We are in the right. We have history on our side. We have God on our side. We have the Bill of Rights on our side. And anyone who is an enemy of those fundamental philosophies, rest assured they are an enemy of this nation. And they must be shown the door. Get out of America, you traitors. Get out of America. Now, today is Martin Luther King Day, and I believe that Martin Luther King would agree with much of what I'm saying here, maybe not all of it, but I know that Martin Luther King was a man who espoused nonviolent solutions, that he believed in the Second Amendment, the right to self-defense. He applied for a concealed carry. He knew that his life was being threatened, and he was correct, that there are dangerous people that were trying to silence him. So he wanted a firearm to carry for his own self-protection, and he was right to seek that out. If Martin Luther King were alive today, I believe he would condemn the actions of Barack Obama. He would say, Obama, you are wrong to take these rights and freedoms away from the American people, including all the African Americans out there who have the right to self-defense, to defend themselves against tyranny or threats of violence or anything that might threaten their own safety or the safety of their families or communities. That's what Martin Luther King would say today, I believe. Stay with us. We'll be right back on The Alex Jones Show. Welcome back. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex Jones today. I'm the editor of naturalnews.com, a frequent contributor to Infowars.com. And check out Infowars.com right now and every day during the broadcast here. As more news is being posted, it seems like every hour, there's Kurt Nimmo and Don Salazar are working very hard, as well as other writers, Paul Joseph Watson, and other contributors to bring you the news that really matters. Now, just to clarify, during the last segment, yes, I did advocate creating a list of all of those people in America who are calling for the abolition of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, and then having those people arrested and stripped of their citizenship and deported from the country. Yes, that is exactly what I'm calling for. Let there be no mistake. And it makes perfect sense because they are traitors from within. In fact, think about it. Obama today, in the inauguration, he swore an oath to defend the Constitution. I mean, how could that not be comedy hour, Obama swearing an oath to defend the Constitution? The entire crowd should have broken out in bouts of mad laughter when he swore that, because he is the one destroying the Constitution. But that oath means you must swear to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. Why is that even in the Constitution? Because the Founding Fathers knew that there would be many enemies of America from within, the most insidious kind. Enemies from within. Enemies of the Constitution, enemies of the Bill of Rights, enemies of the founding principles upon which this great nation was originally created, which gave rise to the abundance and the innovation and the freedom that made this the greatest nation in the world. So why should we tolerate these enemies from within to run around our country and continue to try to destroy it? Why should we tolerate that? We should arrest them. We should kick them out. Again, I'm an advocate of nonviolence, so I don't think we should commit any violence to them. I'm not saying we should throw them in secret prisons like Obama does. I'm not saying we should put them on a kill list like Obama does. I'm not saying that we should do what Obama does and launch unmanned drone missiles to kill innocent children. That's what he does. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, Obama is the king of violence. He talks about protecting children from violence. He's the one killing children with violence. I mean, it's such hypocrisy. But why should we let these people run around and try to destroy our country from within? We shouldn't. We should make a list, have them arrested, give them a fair trial, show the evidence of what they said on television, what they said on CNN. Those people that said Alex Jones should be popped and shot with an AR-15, they should be arrested, stripped of their citizenship, and shown the exit, shown the door. You're out of the country, buddy. Don't come back. Go to North Korea. They probably have a place for you there. I'm sure you could clean toilets in the gulag for Kim Jong-un. Yeah, they might love that. They might love that job. That's what we should do with them. Now, I've got a video all across the country. Over this weekend, there were gun rights protests, or Second Amendment advocacy protests at state capitals everywhere. And I've got a video here from this is a short speech by Roger Saucier, one of the co-founders of the Connecticut Minutemen Group, and here's what he had to say on the Capitol steps of the state of Connecticut over the weekend.
Fellow patriots, I am here to support our Second Amendment right to bear arms, which is provided to us by our Constitution. But not just these rights only, but for all the God-given rights that our government has no business interfering with. Who the hell are they to tell us that we can't have salt, or 20-ounce soda, or an AR-15. I only have one comment. I will not comply.
There it is. I will not comply. Those are the words of Roger Saucier, the founder or co-founder of the Connecticut Minutemen Group, and his words were reflected all across the country in dozens of other protests at state capitals by people who are fed up and who have had enough of the tyranny, who've had enough of enemies of America operating from within, trying to destroy the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They're trying to bring us to a civil war, okay? That's what they're doing. They're trying to turn America into a war zone so that they can then launch their drones on Americans. And they can then activate their kill lists on Americans, American patriots, returning veterans. They're trying to take over because they're losing. They're so desperate. They're so desperate that, look, everything out there is a hoax. The media, CNN will have 13 anti-gun guests on with only 2 defenders of the Second Amendment. The polls that they show, the mainstream media shows, are completely fabricated. They'll delete the poll if the gun rights are winning, or they'll change the numbers to make it look like people want guns banned. The inauguration, total theater. Everything is a hoax out there to try to make you think that the public supports taking away your Bill of Rights, but it's not the case. Freedom is winning. Liberty is popular. Infowars.com is leading the way. So stay tuned right here on Infowars. At Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back after this break with much more. All right, we're back on the Alex Jones Show. Welcome back on this Monday, this Inauguration Day, January 21st, 2013. This is Mike Adams, the editor of naturalnews.com, filling in for Alex today. It's also Martin Luther King Day, and I had a few comments about Martin Luther King and his advocacy of gun rights for private citizens. You know, it's funny. We got banned by Facebook a few weeks ago for posting a graphic where Gandhi was speaking out in support of self-defense because, you know, all human beings have a sacred divine right to defend themselves against aggressors. And Gandhi understood that, and we put that on a graphic, and we put that out on Facebook, and Facebook suspended our account. Yep, and in fact, Drudge linked to that story, and it became quite a bit of a story across the internet. Well, Martin Luther King was also an advocate of gun rights. So you've got these 2 people who history shows, or at least mainstream history says, these are the champions of nonviolence, of pacifism, that they say you're supposed to just lay down and be obedient. That is not what they said at all. Gandhi only resorted to nonviolence because his countrymen were disarmed. If Gandhi had an AR-15 and his countrymen had an AR-15, they would have kicked the British out of that colony a long time, many years earlier. Gandhi had to resort to nonviolence because that was the only thing left. And even in his own writings, the doctrine of the sword in particular, the doctrine of the sword, you can search that online. He spoke of using self-defense to protect yourself or your brother or your family from aggressors who were intent on violence. So don't be fooled into thinking that Gandhi or Martin Luther King only espoused nonviolence. No, they knew that we have a sacred divine right to self-defense. and they both understood the role that firearms play in protecting innocents from aggressors. And that's why Martin Luther King's own house was described as an arsenal of weapons. He had all kinds of guns in there because people were trying to kill him, as actually happened. He was right to be armed, as are you, because you never know what kind of bad person out there might be trying to take you out or take what you own or just commit random acts of violence. That's why we need responsible, upstanding citizens to be armed. Oh, and they're showing that graphic there with Gandhi that we did post if you're watching on prisonplanet.tv. In any case, changing the subject now, we are joined by our first guest today. His name is Max Velocity, or his call sign, I should say, and he's the author of this book, Contact, a tactical manual for post-collapse survival. Now, Max Velocity was born in the UK, and he served in the British Army first before serving in the United States military. And he has a very unique perspective, therefore, on serving in the militaries of both nations, a unique perspective on a nation that has strict gun control versus America, which has gun rights and gun freedoms. So you can find his books on Amazon.com and everywhere else, and we'll give out his website soon. But Max Velocity joins us now. Welcome to the show, Max.
Hi, thanks very much for having me on.
It's my pleasure to have you on. You've just released a new book called Patriot Dawn that lays out a rather frightening scenario of what could happen in America. Can you give us just a brief synopsis of what that book is all about and what you're trying to explore narratively through that work of fiction?
Yes, yeah, sure. Really, that book is a result of my personal journey as I came through the whole prepping thing to writing my own books and my own manuals, trying to give people the tools to be able to defend themselves. Initially, when I was writing Contact, it was more of a collapse kind of situation, and as I've learned more, it kind of also gives you the tools for, you know, perhaps a civil war, resistance against a tyrannical government. All the tools are in there. And then the reason I wrote Patriot Dawn was because it really came to my attention that fiction is a good way of getting things across to people.
Sure.
Some people might not want to buy a manual. They might have, you know, too technical, that kind of thing, tactics. But so what I've tried to do with Patriot Dawn is to write about what I think is a very realistic scenario. Not that I expect it to happen exactly the same way that I'd go through in the prologue to Patriot Dawn. It's just setting a scenario to something that I think, you know, may well be coming soon. And by telling a story, try and sort of not only tell an interesting story, but also sort of educate people in a little bit of tactics, a little bit about what they might face, what things they might be against, and just to try and use that medium to get the point across.
Well, on the philosophical side, let me ask you this. You were born and raised in the UK. You became an American citizen many years later. What are your beliefs and philosophies on the Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights, the right to self-defense versus living in a disarmed society? I mean, it's not a canned question. I'm actually curious about what kind of contrast you see. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, well, I mean, despite the accent, I am a U.S. citizen. I consider myself a patriot. I have sworn the oath on joining the U.S. military and when I became a citizen. I take it very seriously. I joke a little bit. I'm now here living in the United States. I have an American wife and children, and I joke that I should almost be suing for breach of contract, you know, because I came to America. Before I came, I served many years with and for, and you know, U.S. military forces, that kind of thing, in places like the Middle East, and it wasn't that much of a change to me to actually come and, because I've been associated with Americans for a long time before that, so yes, it wasn't a great culture shock to me. And I've taken it very seriously, and I fully support the Second Amendment. I fully support the Constitution. Although, because of things like the UCMJ, I have to be careful what I would say, because, for instance, you know, the Commander-in-Chief is the President, and so therefore I have to be careful what I say. But I will point out that when you swear your oath of allegiance, you swear your oath of allegiance to the Constitution.
Exactly, not to a person, but to the Constitution. So what if someone violates the Constitution? What is your allegiance to them?
Well, we see that all the time. You see that people seem to be violating the Constitution, and there doesn't seem to be any repercussions or consequences for that.
Right.
It just happens all the time, and you've got these instances like Benghazi. You've got I forget the name of it. The Mexican gun running thing.
Yeah, the Sinaloa cartel, all kinds of different cartels, drug Fast and Furious operation that covered that.
And
yeah.
you see thuggery across the United States with police officers doing things unconstitutionally. The TSA. You've got lots of things going on unconstitutional, and really something needs to be done about that. And you originally asked me the question, how do I feel about it? Well, having come from the UK and now being a US citizen, I feel privileged to be in the United States, and given that I started on this path planning for, as like a prepper, planning for a collapse before I really got into the political side of it and started to wake up and see the dangers inherent in our own country. The importance to me of having firearms, whatever you want to call them, weapons. When I was in the military, you call it, you have your personal weapon. That's what it's called. So, I mean, people use the language. But you need those to be able to defend yourself against whatever may happen. I feel privileged that should a collapse happen, that if I'm living in the United States, I'll have the ability to defend my family. If I'm living in the UK, I have nothing.
Well, that's a good point. So we are on the verge, many people believe, of an economic collapse, a global cascading debt collapse of the trillions or more than a quadrillion dollars in derivatives, which are, of course, fake constructs of mathematically inclined greed mongers or something. The point is, the system, it looks ripe for collapse. What will happen in the UK if there is chaos and the citizens have no real way to protect themselves because they've all been disarmed?
Well, I dread to think about it. My family is still living back there, and I really don't know what they can do. I mean, I have family who's actually in the British military, and I would hope that they would get themselves onto a military installation which at least has firearms to better, and somewhere to actually protect themselves. There is nothing most people can do. And this is one of the things, you see these, I have to mention the name Piers Morgan, but you see these interviews and, this British guy coming over and telling people they don't need the Second Amendment anymore. But my experience is that the UK is a very violent society.
Well, yeah, now that you bring it up, let me bring up Piers Morgan, and he joked about shooting rivals. This is an article out of Daily Caller. It says, in England, Piers Morgan joked about shooting, I'm obviously invoking Lord of the Rings there, Piers Morgan / the Dark Lord Sauron Mordor, joked about shooting rivals, said homeowners who killed, and said homeowners who kill burglars should not be prosecuted. So Piers Morgan was saying that first he joked about shooting professional enemies, and he wrote that he was a rabid fascist who wanted burglars tortured, and, quote, after a decent period of cattle prodding, testicle electrode treatment, and slow, gentle skewering over hot coals. These are the words of Piers Morgan, as published by Daily Caller. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, the man's outrageous. He basically got kicked out of the UK, and now people are trying to deport him from the United States, and the people in the UK don't want him back. I mean, it's not really, for him, it's not really about banning a certain type of firearm or gun. It's really about, his real agenda is banning them all, because he's one of these progressives, these collectivists, these statists, and he's a front man for all that. So really, his point. I forget who it was with, but I saw an interview on the internet. Someone was being interviewed by him, and it made some very good points, and he referenced it back to what the real meaning of the Second Amendment is, which is to defend against tyranny. It's not about being a hunter. All those things are things that come out of the fact that you might have firearms.
Target shooting.
That's not what it's really about. And all he could do, Piers Morgan, was just heap derision on this guy. So, it's all on your site. I mean, it all comes in from so many different angles. The kind of the demonization, the thought crime. It's really just about pushing this agenda and to disarm, the American population so that anything can be done to them.
Well, that's exactly it. You got to ask the question: what kind of a nation, or let's say this, what is a government planning if it must first disarm the citizens? So, in fact, there's a quote from the author of this book called Resistance to Tyranny by Joseph P. Martino. And there's a quote in here that I believe goes, any government that attempts to disarm its citizens is either a tyranny or planning to become one. So you got to ask, what are they planning that they got to have everybody disarmed?
Well, exactly, and I think, you guys know a lot more about this than I do. I mean, I'm still on a personal journey of education with this. But you're exactly right, because why would America, an administration in America, want to take away the Second Amendment and effectively disable the Constitution, or revoke or get rid of the Constitution, which is the thing that makes America exceptional and has made America what it is?
Well, right.
If you take away that Constitution, then what is America anymore? I mean, they got rid of guns in Australia, but they weren't protected by Second Amendment right or a Constitution. So they just basically they had a similar situation to Sandy Hook, and they just said, right, no more guns.
Well, but think about all the details of this too. We have an illegitimate president who doesn't qualify, whose birth certificate is a total fake, an absolute document fraud. Multiple layers, copy and paste, font resolutions differ, and so on. It's an obvious fake. I would debate that with anybody. It's irrefutable. And then we have an administration that runs itself like a tyranny, invoking executive orders, bypassing the separation of powers, bypassing Congress, which means bypassing representation. And the War of Independence in America was fought in part over the lack of representation of the American colonies in the decision-making process in the UK. So now we have the same kind of kingship, and Obama was crowned king yet again today in another pompous ceremony that really smacked of, the Fuhrer. This is the same issue that we once fought a war over to get away from and to establish liberty. That's how crazy it has gotten.
Well, my main worry here is that, as the United States has progressed through its history, from being this shining light with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, now it's becoming, basically the federal government is becoming there for its own sake and for whatever other agendas there might be, and it becomes, it's just becoming another socialist state, and it's just starting to do all the things that socialist states do.
Yeah.
And back to your previous point, why would they want to disarm them? Why would you possibly, if as an administration you were interested in what is best for Americans? Because we know that all these arguments about, gun control are just specious. So
sure.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you and me can just say that. We don't have to debate it between ourselves.
Right.
It's ridiculous. So, there is no real reason, apart from agendas and, thought police type stuff, to really want to, disarm Americans. And therefore, so you disarm all the lawful people, and then basically the criminals have the guns, and then the worrying, probably even more worrying than the criminals having the guns, are if there is therefore no defense against tyranny, should, and I say this because I have to, but should an administration become a regime, as I have it in my book, become tyrannical, nobody's got any defense. I mean, well, unless the criminals are going to fight it, but I don't really see that happening.
Right.
They're the only other people that got guns.
I think the brain damaged part of this in the minds of the radical left is that they cannot ever imagine a government becoming a regime, because in their minds, their hardcore belief is that government is the savior. Government is the answer. Government provides solutions. It never causes problems. It only provides solutions. And therefore, how could a government ever murder its own people or commit genocide? And I guess they have to, dismiss all of human history to hold that contradictory belief. But they manage to do that. They can hold that contradiction in their brain, their little brain damaged, minds. I don't know how. I couldn't even fake like being a radical left, anti-gun liberal. I don't know how they do it.
I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I mean, it seems to me that you get to that point where you're trying to push this agenda, and so you're the progressive status who's in power. You're the socialist, whatever it might be. Your ideal might be communism, or whatever the exact agenda is. But you therefore have enemies. You may construct those enemies because you need enemies to push your revolution through. But at the end of the day, it's easy in their mind to justify the removal and destruction of those enemies. Look what happened in Russia and and Nazi Germany, Stalin, Russia.
Well, that's what it has become with Obama, is that his entire agenda is really just destroying his enemies. It's not about helping America. It's not about boosting the economy. Why should government even have the role of boosting the economy anyway? Government's not going to solve that problem. It should be government get out of the way, let innovation rise. But Obama is focused on destroying his enemies and not doing anything really for America.
Well, you didn't build that, there you go.
Yeah, you didn't build that. But hey, Obama's been re-inaugurated and is going to do more. He's going to do more. He gave us the phone, and he's going to do more. Stay with us, Max Velocity. We got to go to a break, but we'll be right back after this break with much more straight ahead here on the Alex Jones Show. Don't go away. Max Velocity is straight ahead. We'll be right back. We're continuing our interview here on the Alex Jones Show with Max Velocity, an author and patriot, and an individual who served in the British Army as well as the United States military. And by the way, this shirt is continuing to sell like crazy at the InfoWars store, InfoWarsStore.com. It is the Come and Take It shirt showing the outline of an AK-47 that is formed by the words of the Second Amendment. And, for example, it has "shall not be infringed" coming out the barrel. What part of "shall not be infringed" do you not understand? I guess it's all about parsing words now, isn't it? Bill Clinton is not is. And Obama, we're going to do more. We're going to do more to erode the Bill of Rights and destroy the Constitution. And we've given them 4 more years. And I guess enough of popular support to where they think they can try to get away with it. But they're going to find that real Americans aren't going to put up with that. So good luck. Good luck with that. Good luck with your little commie agenda. All right, now continuing with Max Velocity, the author of Contact, the author of Patriot Dawn, a very interesting individual who has served in militaries of 2 nations, the UK and the United States, and also served as a contractor working alongside U.S. military men in the Middle East. Max, you still with us there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, great. So I wanted to ask you your thoughts, since you've been, in the trenches, so to speak, with so many individuals in the military. If an order comes down from Washington to, let's say, martial law is declared, well, here's how it would happen. First, a false flag attack is set off somewhere in a major U.S. city. They blame it on gun owners. They then declare martial law, bring in the military, violating posse comitatus, and have the military start kicking in doors and confiscating guns to disarm the American citizens. Do you think, Max, that American military servicemen would engage in that behavior? How or what percent would follow orders, or what do you think might happen?
Well, Mike, I'm not really sure about percentages, but I did basically cover this topic in my book, Patriot Dawn, because I actually have, resistance elements fighting against what I call regime forces. And the way I've described it is, I think there would be a split. Because some people are awake and some people aren't. And some people come from different backgrounds. So among the great variety of people in the United States military, some of them come from strong kind of patriot families, depending on what part of the country they come from. Other people don't. You've got to remember, a lot of people are recruited to the military through the inner cities, for instance.
Yes.
So there's 2 parts to this. There's really what the background is of the people in the military. The military reflects the society it comes from, and so many people in today's society are not aware of and really understand things like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We've got the whole push now, for safety and security, which is infringing upon people's rights. And so you've got many people in the military who are similar to a lot of the people, or even the entitlement classes, as we call them, who are out there in America today. The other side of it is if you've got an active duty unit, for instance, that's sitting on a base, if its chain of command doesn't flinch, and it just, the orders come down, and if there is, an intelligence briefing that says, this false flag attack has happened, so we're going to say it's a false flag attack, but such and such has happened, and there are terrorists, and we have been ordered to deploy and do operations against these terrorists in the domestic United States, a lot of people aren't going to question that. Because
well, yeah, and that's how the manipulation would be done. They would call gun owners terrorists, Can you stay with us for one more segment, Max? We got to take a quick break.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we'll be back in just a little over 1 minute with the final segment with Max Velocity, author of Patriot Dawn, and I'd like to give out your website as well. And we've got other breaking news on gun control, including a quote from Bill Clinton, who says, "Don't trivialize the gun culture." All that straight ahead here on The Alex Jones Show, Infowars.com. We'll be right back. And we're back into the second hour on The Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams filling in for Alex today. Alex returns tomorrow. And you know, one of the great things about what's happening right now is we really have to thank Obama, and we've got to thank Senator Feinstein from California. We got to thank all of these gun grabbers for overreaching, vastly overreaching. They have made a tactical error. They have awakened tens of millions of people to the reality that we are under siege by an illegitimate, unconstitutional, and perhaps even a criminal government. And this is going to work in our favor. And by us, I mean patriots. I mean people who actually believe in America, who believe in the founding fathers and the principles upon which we were founded. So they've overreached, and Bill Clinton warned about that just recently. This is an article out of Politico, January 19. Bill Clinton says to Democrats, don't trivialize the gun culture. A lot of these people, he's talking about people who advocate firearms ownership, private firearms ownership. A lot of these people live in a world very different from the world lived in by the people proposing these things. He means gun control measures. I know because I come from this world. Yeah, Arkansas. There is a big gun culture in Arkansas. There is, in fact, gun culture isn't even the right word. It's a culture of liberty and self-reliance. That's really what it is. So Max Velocity continues with us in this segment. He's our guest, the author of Patriot Dawn. And Max, I'd like your comments on Bill Clinton's quote there about not trivializing the gun culture. But first, please give out your website address so people can find you.
Yeah, sure. It's maxvelocitytactical.com. It's maxvelocitytactical.
Okay, maxvelocitytactical.com, and I see that forwards to a Blogspot page. So very good.
There's a link to the blog on there as well.
All right, not a lot of info on there yet, but I'm sure you'll continue to post. But there are some pictures of you in action. What is that? Is that a saw full auto rifle there?
I think, yeah. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but there's a picture of me with a saw.
Yeah, that's some pretty heavy duty firepower you got there, dude.
That's right.
Is that what you have in your house now?
I wish, but no. So.
Yeah, those full auto kind of pricey to get those these days.
Yeah.
Not too many private citizens with a saw, right?
No.
Hammers, that's a totally different story, but not saws. Okay, only gun owners will get that joke. But go ahead, sir, with your comments.
On the Bill Clinton thing about awakening the gun owners.
Yes. What do you think? What do you think about that? Because
multiple thoughts. Because yes, I think maybe in their arrogance, people like Feinstein have overreached. But what worries me is, I mean, we were just talking before about how military could be kind of persuaded to be used domestically against so-called domestic terrorists who might just be preppers or gun owners or whatever it is. You know, you have those pronouncements that people having waterproof ammunition and more than 7 days of food could be like domestic terrorists and ridiculous things like that. What worries me is at what point people are going to kind of stand up, and by which I mean I expressly mean not do anything violent. In fact, that's one of the dangers, is that there might be some kind of false flag thing which is put onto, you know, this could be how it begins. They've blown up somewhere or they've shot someone, and these are the right-wing extremist terrorists, and now we've got to clamp down. Yeah,
well, we're fully expecting that to happen. In fact, I'd put money on that happening. I'm sure they're working on it.
But yeah, and what I really mean is, you know, when are people really going to just stand up, you know, like civil protest? Because what worries me, you see enough already of these SWAT no-knock raids, supposedly against the wrong addresses, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they just start to take people down, isolated people in different houses or compounds or whoever they decide to see as the new threat, you know, you get the kind of Waco, was it Ruby Ridge? Sorry, I forget the name.
Yeah, Ruby Ridge.
Ruby Ridge. You know, you get those kind of situations which are appalling.
Well, Max, we got to let you go. We got to go to break, but thanks for joining us today. The website is maxvelocitytactical.com. If you want to learn more, the book is Patriot Dawn, available everywhere now. Thanks for joining us, Max.
Okay.
All right, we'll be right back after this break. Stay with us here on The Alex Jones Show. Thank you for joining us today on Monday, January 21st, 2013. This is The Alex Jones Show, and I'm Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, editor of naturalnews.com, filling in for Alex today. Alex will be back in this chair tomorrow to continue with his comments. I can only imagine what he's going to have to say about today's pompous inauguration of the King, Obama, and everything else that's going on these days. But we're going to go through more news, and then at the bottom of this hour, we've got Sheriff Denny Peyman from Kentucky, who is going to be joining us as a guest with an update on his thoughts on the Second Amendment, the Founding Fathers, and what's really happening to America. In the meantime, we're going to go over some news, and I'd like to take some calls in the second half of this hour. So if you're interested in calling, it's 1-800-259-9231. Yep, just making sure that's it. 1-800-259-9231. Call anytime in the next 30 minutes or so, and then we will start taking your calls about the Second Amendment, or especially if you have a call for Sheriff Denny Peyman. Now, I was just thinking during the break there, how is it that these operatives in the Obama administration and in Congress, how do they think that they're not going to face their own sort of Nuremberg trial at some point? I mean, really, do they? Because look, all they've done is they've activated the Bill of Rights resistance to tyranny that was part of the DNA of America. They've activated the DNA of America. They've activated the culture of independence and freedom and liberty, and they've grossly miscalculated. Bill Clinton just pointed that out. I read that in the last break. Bill Clinton says to Democrats, don't trivialize gun culture. Basically, he says you're not going to make any headway by just dismissing the pro-gun arguments. He says the issue of guns has special emotional resonance in many rural states. It's not just emotional resonance, it's survival, people. You live on a farm, you live on a ranch. If you don't have a rifle, if you don't have a hunting gun, if you don't have a shotgun, you can't succeed in farming. Believe me, I know that because I live on a ranch. And many times that I grab a shotgun and rush outside and have to take care of something to protect our animals, or to investigate a strange noise from a wild animal or a strange sound or whatever. Many times you do that. And if you're a farmer, you need a varmint rifle. You might need a hunting rifle, a high-powered hunting rifle with like 1/2 MOA accuracy, something like that, to really reach out and, long-range accuracy. But how do these people in the Obama administration actually think, and all these people on CNN that are advocating the destruction of the Constitution, the destruction of the Bill of Rights, do they not realize that they are admitting their guilt as traitors to America? Do they not realize that? Do they have no view of history. They have no understanding that they've just admitted total guilt. And I tell you what, it's on. And if the communists don't win, if they don't take over the entire nation, they're all going to face trial. All right? I'm just putting that out there. They're going to face trial, and may God have mercy on their souls, because I'm not so sure that the citizenry will have mercy on them. I'm always an advocate of nonviolence. I think people should have a fair trial. I think we stick to the Bill of Rights. We stick to due process. We give them what they would deny us, which is a jury of their peers and due process. See, they would deny us the very things that we would grant them, because we are the ones who occupy the moral high ground. We are in the right. We have the philosophy, the ideals upon which this nation was founded. We would grant them a jury trial. We would grant them the right to remain silent. We would not try to take away their rights, even though they try to take away ours. And that's why we will be victorious, because they will alienate the population. If they try to conduct gun confiscation raids, even by calling gun owners terrorists, it won't take very long before those military bases find out that all their supplies are cut off, because they depend on the goodwill of the citizenry to give them food and water and safe passage to and from the base to their homes. As Paul Howe said in a recent piece that we talked about here last week or week and a half ago, it wouldn't take long before any military personnel based in America who engaged in gun confiscation and the murder of American citizens It wouldn't take long before their homes and their families were identified by resistance groups, and they would start taking casualties. So you're either with the Republic or you're toast. I mean, to put it in simple slang, you're either with the Republic or you're toast. That's the bottom line. And let me tell you something. I'm with the Republic, all right? No matter what, I'm with the Republic. You can count on that. And I want you to know, all of you listening out there, I very much appreciate you. I feel a closeness to you and to your passion and to your mission right now. And I will do whatever it takes to speak up for freedom, for justice, for this republic, to publish stories, to help out here at Infowars.com when I can. You know I'm here as a volunteer. You know I'm never paid to be here. You know, so much for Obama's excuse that people are ginning up fear to try to make revenues for themselves. You know, I'm getting paid zero to be here. I'm here because I'm a patriot. I'm a patriot, and I believe in this republic, and I believe we're going to win back this republic, and I hope we can do it through the Constitution. I hope we can do it without violence. I hope we can do it with no suffering. That's my prayer out there. Let America be saved. Let the republic be restored with no loss of life, with no bloodshed, with no suffering of innocent people. That's what it's going to take. And I'm going to be here to help make that happen no matter what. All right? I just want you to know that. And I know a lot of you don't know me. I grew up, I played football 1 year in high school. I ran track 4 years, competitive athlete, very high academic scores. Went into engineering school, ended up with a degree in technical writing, wrote software documentation, founded a software company, became a business innovator, ended up creating a multi-million-dollar software firm that sold software to 25% of the Fortune 500, and found liberty and the need for liberty in the 1990s. On the tail end of the Clinton administration, I began to see, my eyes began to be opened to the reality of what was happening in our world. And I got to say, I was in college, I actually believed a lot of the liberal stuff. I was indoctrinated by the public education system. I was suckered into the Clinton charisma. And I think a lot of people are suckered into the Obama charisma with the same thinking today. I had to find liberty myself. I had to read and study and learn and become a defender of liberty and teach myself history that the public schools wouldn't teach me. So I didn't have the benefit of homeschooling. I didn't have the benefit of private schooling. I was a public school educated, you know, typical Midwest student, and had to come out of that. Anyway, enough about me. I just wanted to give you a little background so you know where I'm coming from. I come from the Midwest, and I had to find liberty on my own. Let's get to the other news. A kindergartner has been suspended for bubblegum terrorism. So this kindergartner pointed, a 5-year-old girl pointed a bubblegum gun at a fellow student, a Hello Kitty bubble blower, and was then suspended. There you go. I also wrote a piece last night about Nerf guns. Apparently, oh my God, you can buy on Amazon.com a full auto Nerf assault rifle that has 18-round magazines. I mean, high-capacity clips. It comes with 3 of them, 18-round magazines. And it's full auto, man. I mean, full auto Nerf guns, and they don't even have background checks required. How dare Amazon sell full auto Nerf assault rifles to children? It's advertised to children, 8-year-olds. No background checks, no fingerprinting. I can't believe it. So I propose that we have a new federal law that is called the Nerf Control Act of 2013. And what we have to do is limit all full auto Nerf guns to no more than 7 rounds of ammo per magazine to be in compliance with New York. And even if you have an 18-round Nerf magazine, you can only load 7 Nerf bullets into it. Otherwise, you're a terrorist, and you'll be suspended from your school, or they'll make you wear an RFID chip like they do in San Antonio. How wonderful is that? Nerf assault rifles. Yep, soon our little kids will be arrested as terrorists for toting Nerf guns. All right, Time Warner has banned gun ads, continues to produce movies full of gun violence. This is a story by Paul Joseph Watson up on Infowars.com right now. Time Warner bans gun ads. Any ad that shows a gun pointed at another person, they're banning it. But, of course, they're going to keep producing movies that show the total hypocrisy of all the Hollywood celebrities who've been calling for gun control, who, meanwhile, star in all of these roles of pure blood and gore, shooting people, blowing their bodies apart on screen with massive splotches of blood striking the camera and dripping down the lens. They love that, but they want to ban ads now that depict guns pointed at people. All right, we've got this from prisonplanet.com. Actually, it's from the Lou Rockwell blog. We've got a cartoon, a weapon guide for the uninformed. It's called Guns and Obama for Dummies. And it shows how many people are killed each year by these various objects. It shows an AR-15 rifle, mass shootings 18, and then it shows a car remote with a key on it, auto accidents, 32,885 deaths. It shows a rifle, 453 deaths, and then it shows a bottle of whiskey, drunk driving, 10,839 deaths. It shows a blunt object, hammer, 674 deaths, knives, 1,817 deaths, hands, feet, and fists, 869 deaths. Oh my goodness, it looks like we should ban Jack Daniels, automobiles, hammers, knives, and fists. Yes, you must all be amputated to conform with the new weapons control legislation in Washington, which is also great because you won't be able to post on Facebook. All right, stay with us. We'll be back with a lot more straight ahead. It's the Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back. Yeah, we're back. It's the Alex Jones Show, Infowars.com. Mike Adams here filling in for Alex today. We've just become aware of a new law being debated in the Senate, SB 124. It turns parents into criminals if they fail to report to the school that they own a firearm. So let me just run this down for you. A parent has a child that goes to the school. If the parent owns a firearm, that parent must notify the school district that the parent owns a firearm within 30 days of enrolling the child in the school. Otherwise, they become a criminal. The written notification needs to include the names of the parent and any child attending the school and the fact that the parent owns a firearm. So, of course, they're trying to create another database, and they're going to discriminate against your child in the school. So you're bad. Your mommy or your daddy owns a gun. You're bad. You're evil. And they're probably going to then force that child into psychiatric care and then use the psychiatric diagnosis as a justification to take away your right to own a firearm. So you see how this works? It's all a catch-22 little scam. Now, how is this going to stop a kid like Adam Lanza from killing his parent and stealing her guns? Think about that. I guess they're going to have to charge the dead mother of Adam Lanza with a felony because it's her fault. It's her fault that her son allegedly killed her and took her guns. It's her fault. I mean, if your child kills you and steals your guns, it's your fault. They're going to dig up your grave. They're going to dig up your body. They're going to throw you in handcuffs and charge you with another felony crime and probably have you as a guest with Piers Morgan. Just have a corpse right there talking to Piers Morgan. Just a corpse. Piers Morgan would say to the corpse, "How dare you be a corpse?" I mean, it's just like zombie time, total zombification of America. But that law, SB 124, is, I don't think it's on the floor of the Senate yet, but it was sponsored by Chappelle and Nadal. I don't know how you pronounce that. Those are the co-sponsors. There you go, SB 124. Now you have to alert the school if you own a firearm and if you have a child in school. So one more reason to homeschool, folks, as if we needed more. We've got a guest coming up here in just a few minutes. We've got Sheriff Denny Peyman. He is the outspoken sheriff who is now famous for his YouTube video talking about the importance of the Founding Fathers and what they would want to see happen in America today, which is the restoration of the Republic and the rights of the people uninfringed. So we'll have that sheriff on the show here in just a few minutes. Here's a quote from Bill Clinton. This was mentioned last week by Aaron Dykes in a video. Bill Clinton said, and I'm not sure what year this is, quote, "When we got organized as a country and we wrote a fairly radical constitution with a radical Bill of Rights, giving a radical amount of individual freedom to Americans. This is Bill Clinton again. It was assumed that the Americans who had that freedom would use it responsibly. There's a lot of irresponsibility now, and so a lot of people say there's too much freedom. Wow. Well, wait a minute, Mr. Clinton. When we, the people, granted power to the government to have limited powers to run a few small things in the nation, we assumed that the limited government would use those limited powers responsibly. But it didn't. It became irresponsible. It became oppressive. It became a regime. It bypassed the will of the people and has become a monster that is on the verge of committing genocide. So, to quote Bill Clinton, that's a lot of irresponsibility. And so a lot of people say there's too much government. And when government is abusing our freedoms, you have to move to limit it. So that's the flip side of Bill Clinton's quote. You see, Bill Clinton was saying that, oh my God, there's too much freedom. There's freedom everywhere. Freedom is flowing around. It's out of control. There's so much liberty. It's just totally out of control. What are we going to do? We're going to have to limit the freedom, he says. But wait a minute. The answer is government's out of control. It's too much government invading every little area of our lives. How much water you could flush in your toilet. How big your soda can be in New York. Now you got to register your guns if you have a kid in school, if this bill passes. I mean, the government is intruding in every area of our lives. I wouldn't be surprised if New York Governor Cuomo passed a law that said you can only use 2.5 square sheets of toilet paper every time you use the restroom in New York. 2.5 sheets. And they would require toilet paper manufacturers to put extra perforations at the half sheet mark so that you could tear off exactly 2.5 sheets without leaving a frayed edge, which is not acceptable to the mafia running the New York state government. 2.5 sheets of toilet paper is actually, that's what the Cuomo administration is probably worth after they're used. We'll be right back straight ahead. This is the Alex Jones Show. Don't go anywhere. We've got Sheriff Denny Peyman joining us now in this segment and taking some of your calls. So thank you for calling in, Joe, Rick, Pat, Austin, and others. And Sheriff Denny Peyman, of course, is the sheriff of Jackson County, Kentucky, who made an emotional speech to his constituents that was posted on YouTube talking about the importance of honoring what our founding fathers fought for and the liberty they gave us, and then the moral responsibility that we have to protect those freedoms for future generations. And Sheriff Peyman, I want to welcome you back to the Alex Jones Show.
Thank you very much. It's just my pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great to have you back on, sir. Things are moving rapidly, but I first want to ask you, what has been the reaction so far to your appearance last week on the Alex Jones Show, as well as your YouTube video? What are you hearing from people?
Well, it's all been very pro what we're trying to keep here. It's been there's been no negative calls whatsoever. What I'm getting from people mostly is that they're ready to dig in. They're ready to stand their ground, and that's been really exciting to see that there's still people that are willing to step up and to stand in the gap, even for the people that choose not to. The people that choose to are still standing in the gap, not only for their freedoms, but for the freedoms of the people that obviously don't understand what's happening right now.
So have you had a meeting with your deputies then where it's very clear to everybody that you're standing your ground, you're not going to disarm constituents in your county and so on? Is it clear to everybody now where you and your office stands?
Yes, it's very clear. And the support that's come back from the community has just been great. Because sometimes when you make a stance like that and you step out, I mean, I didn't ask anybody about it. I didn't ask for a poll. I didn't ask for the favor, if it was going to be good or bad. I just went by my heart and the commitment that I made when I took an oath, and the way I was raised, and the things that I was taught in my home by my parents. There was just no other response to have, is that, no, it's just not going to happen here.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. This isn't up to a poll. That's the whole point of the Bill of Rights, is that these things in the Bill of Rights are not subject to debate. They're not subject to unpopular movements, you always have a First Amendment. You always have a Second Amendment and so on. They cannot be taken away from you no matter how unpopular they may become in any particular moment in history. So you did the right thing. You followed your oath.
Exactly. And that's what I think people are looking for. I think a lot of people are still, what's politically correct and what's, going to get me reelected, or, they have their own little hidden agendas as to their safe being. But with me, it was just the commitment that I had made and the issues that I count to be important to me and to my family and the people around me. And that's a very big commitment, is to, uphold what has been given and handed down to us, and the price that others have paid, that we might just even, have these opportunities.
Absolutely. And also just from a practical, perhaps even a tactical viewpoint, if your population there, your constituents, if they were forcibly disarmed from some other method, or if they turned in all their guns for some reason, which I know they wouldn't do, but wouldn't that put you and your deputies in grave danger responding to 911 calls, because now you're going to situations where you don't have any help of firepower from the citizens?
Exactly. And I talk with citizens every day, and I've talked with citizens today. One that had just come in, and I've known this man to carry a gun for the last 15 years. Every day that I've been around him, I've never seen it. I've never seen his gun, but I know every day that he has. When I asked him if he had his weapon with him, and he said yes, he did. And if I'm out in a remote area and my closest backup is maybe 30 minutes away and I'm in a bad situation, I sure would like to see a citizen like that show up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
I would actually be hanging myself out to disarm him,
Yeah, that would be crazy. Have you ever, or have any of your discussions gone into the area of, let's say, a possible financial collapse followed by civil unrest, and then how your county might protect your community with the help of armed citizens? Has that ever entered your discussions at all?
Not so much like in open discussions in a meeting or anything like that, but just in coffee room talk.
Yeah.
What people are saying, what they're going to do. And, you have a lot of people that, do the home storage. They get the food, they get the water, and they've been real good too, but they're pacifist type people.
Yeah.
And, I understand that, I respect their beliefs, but I also know that that's the first place that they're going to hit, because they know there's no resistance there.
Right.
And so is that really fair to their family, who they have, said they're going to provide for the next year while we go through these situations, these problems, and to have somebody else march in and take the stuff out of their home and leaves them with nothing?
Well, there was a comedian, I think it was Gaffigan who said this. He said, if you store up a bunch of food and you don't have a gun, all you've done is stored supplies for the biggest bully on the block.
Exactly.
Not such a good strategy. Are you open to taking a few calls?
Sure.
Because I would like to take some calls, live calls here, and we've got one guest, Rick from New Mexico. I'd like to go to Rick first, please, who is says he's got a question for the sheriff. So, Rick from New Mexico, you're on the air with Sheriff Peyman. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Doing great, sir. How about you?
Good. I just wanted to tell you something, and then I want to ask the sheriff a question.
All right.
But you just talked about that homeschooling, and we homeschool about the school thing. You know how corrupt the schools are.
Yeah.
But we homeschool, and we didn't have our kid vaccinated. My wife's never worked a day out of the home. And there's times when it gets really stressful with the money. But then, when you hear things like that, you're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? By protecting your kids.
I'm a big advocate of homeschooling.
Pardon?
I said we need more homeschoolers, but go ahead with your question for the sheriff, please.
Okay. I wanted to know if you're familiar with the oath takers. Are you part of that, or?
I am. I've learned more about them. No, I'm not an oath taker, other than
oath keeper.
Oath keeper. I'm sorry. An
yes.
oath keeper, okay. Other than just from what I've heard about it. But I take any oath that I say. It's a promise. It's very important to me.
Well, it's sworn. Go ahead, caller.
Sorry, I'm an over-the-road truck driver, and I get called into the chicken coop or pulled over by the state patrol. And it's very surprising because things I learned from Alex, I'll sit and question them when I'm sitting in the car and ask them questions about, ammunition at the Homeland Security. And these people are very much against Obama, I mean, for the most part, and all the things that he's doing. So, I mean, that's good news, I guess.
Well, yeah, your comments on that, Sheriff?
Well, from what from what I've taught, the calls that I've had from officers, I've had from military people, I've had from, I mean, everybody that you can imagine. But a lot of the officers and military people are saying when it comes right down to that, with them having to come into my county and do that, they said they won't do it.
Yeah, very, very good. Well, thank you for your call, Rick. That was some good questions. Sheriff, I'm curious, have you had any conversations at all with your Senator Rand Paul? I mean, because
I've talked with him and I've talked with his people, and we've had quite a few conversations already. So it's been there's a lot of support there. Anything
that's okay to share on the air about? I mean, Rand Paul has been very public about Obama being a king and how he's going to lead a resistance in the Congress against unconstitutional executive orders, for example. Is there anything in those conversations that is okay to share with us publicly?
Well, just that we have the same beliefs and we have the same thing at heart. The thing is that at heart is the Constitution, and by serving the people that have put us in these positions, that's the only thing we can do. And the position that he takes is being supported by everybody here.
Yeah.
And I've had no opposition other than just high regards for Rand in all that he is doing and all the people here that support him.
Have you spoken with Sheriff Mack?
Yes, I have.
Good, good.
Yes, I have.
It is people like you, Sheriff Peyman, who are the key to victory of restoring the public in America, and I'm sure you realize that.
Well, it's really kind of sad in some ways, because I've had some people come up and say, "Oh, you're really a hero," and what it's not being a hero. It's a responsibility of all Americans.
Absolutely.
And it's something that should have never got to this point in the first place.
Well, that's what I said in the last hour, and I know this is going to be controversial, but I said people who openly attack the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, who are saying we should eliminate it, they are enemies of America, and we should deport them and strip them of their citizenship, as far as I'm concerned.
That's if they're not happy here, there's a lot of other places in the world that I'm sure would take them right in.
Yeah, well, Kim Jong-un needs some additional servants in his gulags, so I'm sure a lot of those folks will be happy there. Let's go to another caller, Joe in Pennsylvania, with comments on the Second Amendment. Joe, you're on the air with Alex Jones Show and Sheriff Peyman. Go ahead, sir.
How you doing, guys?
Doing good.
Good.
First of all, I want to thank you, Sheriff, for what you're doing. We need more public people to come out in public like you are, because I'm sure, a lot of them are, thinking the same thing, but I think they need to go more public. But one thing I've noticed on YouTube, I think they're suppressing counts on things because there's like tons of people that are, they got these comments about the guns. And,
they systematically do that. Yes, Joe.
And it's disheartening. And also, like on Facebook, you make comments like this, and people, they just don't care. They just care about cookies and football and all that other stuff. But I wanted to share something with you guys. I'm sure you've seen it before, but if not, I found a interesting video on YouTube. It was published on December 15th of 2012. Australia bans guns. Crime rate soars. Sure. And they if you didn't see it, it just shows how they're chopping up the guns, and the people. They said, the guy said, the gun I have to keep it locked here. It can't be loaded.
Well, let's direct that to Sheriff Peyman. Thank you for your call, Joe. But what would happen in your county, Jackson County, Kentucky, if everyone were disarmed? What would happen to the crime rate there, in your view?
It'd just go out the roof. I mean, we'd have people coming from everywhere just to steal from here.
Yeah. Well, hey, Sheriff, why don't you just, I got the solution for you. You put a big sign on the road that comes into your county, and the sign says gun-free zone. Then you'd be protected, right?
Oh, I'm sure, absolutely. Every good citizen would probably stop there, and if they did have a gun, rather than enter, they'd probably turn around and leave, and would not enter that zone if they were, just a good citizen that went by that.
But of course, part of the problem is some of these criminals can't read because they're illiterate, so they can't even read gun-free zone. So that's why, if they could read it, it would work. Then they would just turn their guns in at the border, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I think the biggest problem with this whole gun thing is everybody's. I don't know what's happened to people's common sense. You know,
You and me both, brother.
I mean, they're talking stuff that. I mean, it's just. I would be ashamed to even have that come out of my mouth. You know.
Well, it's this magical thinking. They think, for example, this is mostly from people who are not familiar with firearms. They think that a rifle will leap out of the trunk of a car, it will load itself, it will turn its own safety off, and it will engage in rapid fire as its own animated metallic object without any human being operating it. That's what they literally believe.
Well, we tried to, so we'd have something to back that up, that theory up. We took a gun and we placed it in a room full of people, but we hid it where nobody knew it was in there, but yet it was in plain view. And we had people come and go. We did that for several years, and not one of those people ever saw that gun, felt that gun, and that gun never bothered anybody. So
really?
We didn't know what to do after that.
Well, I'm pretty sure Obama would say that's an unscientific experiment. You did not have a control group.
Oh, but we did, and we logged it every day as to what it did and everything. So.
Well, they also believe, I mean, at the bottom line is all of us want to see less violence against innocents. That's the goal that we can agree on. What we disagree on is how to get to that point. And for some reason, the gun grabbers think that if the law-abiding citizens turn their guns in, somehow fewer criminals would use guns. How does that even make sense?
Well, I mean, it's just. I'm looking at the criminal side of it. Let's just say I'm a criminal, and I picked out a school that I'm going to go attack. So I started doing my homework on the school, and I realized the guy that went ahead of me to go to this school, when he walked into the school, a guy come out from behind a desk and shot him. He didn't get a chance to shoot anybody.
Yeah.
Chances are I'm not going to go to that school. I'm going to have to look for another one.
Well, there you go. Another argument for arming some of the school personnel. Let's go to another call if you're okay. Pat in Texas. Pat, welcome to the show. You're on the air with Sheriff Peyman. Go ahead, sir.
I wanted to say that, and I haven't heard this mentioned lately, but many years ago in Kennesaw, Georgia, they passed a law that you had to have a gun in your house.
Yes.
Of course, law-abiding citizens. Didn't the crime rate drop 70%? The criminal break-ins drop 70% overnight?
Good question. Are you aware of the stats related to that, Sheriff?
I have heard of that, but it wasn't here in our area because they didn't have to pass a law like that. People had it anyway.
Yeah.
That's something that goes back to the common sense thing,
All right. Well, do you have a follow-up question, Pat?
Yeah. I'm worried about like taking the bullets, sale of the bullets away, and where do you hide those? I know Tupperware will hold things waterproof. I put matches in Tupperware and thrown it in the yard, and 2 years later, took them out and struck them. Now that's the old Tupperware. The new Tupperware is microwave proof. But I was wondering, how do you stop them from detecting that with a metal detector, the kind you go to the beach with and look for rings with your kids?
I can answer that. Living on a ranch in Texas, you throw all kinds of scrap metal all over the yard, which is pretty much already there anyway if you live on a ranch. Any other thoughts on that, Sheriff?
No, that's the way it works, though. And there's bullets buried that they can dig them up years and years from now. People have thought well enough ahead in advance that even if they pass stuff today, they're never going to get all this stuff. So
yeah, I tell you, if one of Obama's minions wants to run a metal detector over 400 acres, go for it. That'll distract you while we restore liberty in the meantime. All right, let's go to another caller, and thank you for your call, Pat. Mariah in Iowa. Mariah, you're on the air with Sheriff Peyman from Kentucky. Go ahead with your call. Your question.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great.
Hi, Denny.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm doing all right. I have a question for you. I need some clarity on it, clarification.
Go ahead.
With all this, after the president signed these executive orders and everybody went into panic, I know Alex had a few sheriffs on. Don't know whether it was you or Sheriff Mack. I'm in central Iowa. I have my county sheriff ran solely. He's a high-profile individual.
Okay, caller, we're gonna have to go to break here real quick, but please. Oh, we're skipping it. Okay, I'm sorry. We're skipping this break. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I really want to get this out in the open. I think a lot of people are confused at what a sheriff, what is his duty when he is sworn in. This this sheriff of my county was, like I said, a high-profile individual. He ran on his name. He was just elected to a second term from his previous job.
So your question is, what are the responsibilities of the sheriff?
What the 10th Amendment? I called him. I wanted to know how he stood on the issue of if federal officials were to come in, does he have the right to say no? You know, this is my responsibility. These are the people that elected me.
Well, the short answer is yes, but let's let Sheriff Peyman answer that.
Yes, the sheriff is the highest elected official for law enforcement in your area. If it be the county, then that's be the area. Where, just like Kentucky, we're a sovereign state, and they've tried to break that. What's happened over the years is the states have given up rights and things to the federal government. If you go back to the way the Constitution was made, that we're all individuals. Just like they're trying to make decisions in Washington for the people in Jackson County. All they can make is the decisions for a mass of people. I'm going to do a better job or the people here are going to do a better job of electing somebody that's going to provide for our needs here rather than something federal. Now, the sheriff here or the sheriff there knows your problems and situations and issues better than the federal people coming in. The federal people can pass those laws, but most sheriffs do not exercise the rights and authority that they do have because most of them aren't familiar with it.
That's right. That's right. So a sheriff can say, and if this is passed by the local voters, a law that says, let's say a federal agent cannot enforce an unconstitutional gun confiscation in the county, a sheriff can legally stand on the road with force and arrest those federal agents, and that is all 100% protected under law.
Yes.
I hope it doesn't come to that. I would hope the feds would back down, knowing what they'd be facing, but I think that's what the caller was getting at.
Yeah, well, I think the way it's going to go, I don't think it's going to be the federal people come in to try to get the guns anyway, because most of the federal people I've talked to believe the same way that we believe. They swore an oath to the Constitution as well.
Yes.
And I think it's going to take outside of this country bringing people in that are actually the ones in the long run when it gets to that point. But the key is don't let it get to that point. Let's nip it in the bud right now and take control of what is already ours.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I know there are many very good men and women in the FBI, for example, even in the ATF, in the DEA. Sometimes I criticize the DEA for their overreaching raids, but you know, there are good people in every branch, just as there are bad apples in every branch. But I think you're right. There are enough good people to prevail. But are you talking about like a Red Dawn type of scenario? Something really goes wrong and we have foreign troops in the country? Is that what you're...
Yeah, I think that's where your United Nations is going to play an effect.
Yeah.
As if something goes wrong somewhere else, they send the U.S. boys over there, and if something goes wrong here, they're just going to hold the U.S. boys back because they wouldn't do that. They're not going to go into some little woman's house that lives, her closest neighbor's 2 miles away, and she's just there with her pets, and the only thing she has is a AK-47 laying by her bed to protect herself. I don't think they're going to take it from her.
No, and they will have to use foreign troops, but I got to tell you, every hunter in Texas can hit a blue helmet at 600 yards, so they're going to be in for a fight if that happens. Let's go to one more call. Austin in Ohio calling in about the Obama inauguration. Austin, go ahead. You're on the air, sir.
How are you gentlemen doing today?
We're fighting for liberty, brother.
Oh, yeah, right on. I just wanted to speak my mind on something because this whole Obama inauguration is just a complete hoax. And I'm just seeing people around on social media and just everywhere in general just worshiping this puppet who kills kids with little drones. And it's just completely ridiculous how they just worship a puppet who's doing all of this stuff. And the sheep out here are just not doing any type of research out here. And they're making all these biased comparisons to Martin Luther King and all these pictures and stuff. And it's just completely demonizing.
Well,
and
Austin, let me let you in on something here that I'm convinced, and Sheriff, you'll find this interesting as well. I'm convinced that about 1/3 of all of the Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts are run by advanced linguistic robots. In other words, code that's been written to act like real human beings. you don't know that's even a real person. So a lot of that stuff, it's a completely, like you said, it's a complete hoax. It's a theater reaction that's made to appear as if it were real. Sheriff, directing the question to you, and thank you for your call. Austin, have you seen some of this posts on Facebook about you that seem to be sort of, maybe there wasn't really a person behind it, auto-generated type of thing?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Well, they're out there. The robots are running the online world. That's the thing about local government. When you spoke to your constituents on that YouTube video, there you were in person, face to face, eye to eye. That's real. But this stuff on Facebook, it could all be a hoax. We don't even know.
Yeah. Very true. That's why I say when you're better off, and that's when the sheriffs on the level of the county level are going to make a lot better decision for his people, his constituents, than somebody from federal people.
That's exactly right.
And that's why they designed it that way.
Are you, I'm just curious, by the way, we need more people in positions of authority in America, people like you. And I'm sure you've heard that, and I know you're a humble person, but have you ever thought about, I don't know, running for Congress in the state of Kentucky, or taking on a position of more influence?
Well, I have. I've had people have talked to me a lot about that in the last week, and have offered avenues to do that. What I do is something like that. I just have to pray about it and just see the direction. There's nothing worse than to be out of the will of what God would have you to do. I mean, if my sole purpose in life is to be a sheriff in Jackson County and raise up some young men to go on and fill those positions and guide and direct them, then that's what I would do.
Absolutely. Well, that's the sense I get, that you are already a powerful, influential person just by the truth in your voice, the wisdom in your words. And without even ever stepping foot in the House of Congress, you are influencing minds right now in a positive direction that can influence generations to come.
Well, you know, people came before us, the generations before us were men and women that took a stand, and upon that stand, people reacted and moved with that, and that's why we are where we are today. I can still look back into my childhood and people that helped mold me, and it's the responsibility of us to mold that next generation. I may never be in Congress, but if I can mold a young man or young woman to go into Congress and to make the right decisions that are going to further benefit liberty and our area here, then that's what I'm doing.
Words of wisdom from Sheriff Denny Peyman of Jackson County, Kentucky. Thank you, Sheriff, for joining us today on the Alex Jones Show. Pleasure to speak with you again.
Thank you, sir.
And he's right. Life is fleeting, but principle lasts forever. Be right back. It gives me a great sense of confidence to know that my fellow Americans include people like Sheriff Denny Peyman, who we just interviewed there in that last segment, people like Sheriff Mack, people like Rand Paul, people like Alex Jones. We are blessed to live in a nation where we have the sense of ethics and morality and sense of history and the context of the bigger picture with which we can rise up in resistance to tyranny, hopefully peacefully, and restore the republic so that innocent lives can be saved, so that bloodshed can be avoided, so that we can move forward as a nation of justice, of innovation, of progress, real progress for humankind, not the selfish greed progress of an elite few, which is what we're battling against today. But I feel proud to be an American, and I've lived all over the world. I've lived outside the country. I speak a couple of different languages. I've lived in places where guns were illegal for citizens to own, and I've seen what happens there. And it is a tyranny. It is oppression. It's a nightmare. And do not give up your guns, America. You do not want to live as disarmed slaves to a 1984-style Orwellian government that demands your obedience. You do not want to be in that situation. All right, we're into the third hour, by the way, and thank you for continuing with us. I know today's been a pretty heavy day, pretty serious, a lot going on. We have more news coming up still ahead. And Jon Rappoport will be joining us in a few minutes for an update on the psychiatric police state. And in the few minutes that we have in this segment, I'd like to continue with your calls, and then we'll get into news in the next segment. So callers that have been holding, let's go to Stephen in Pennsylvania with comments on the Second Amendment. Stephen, you're on the air. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, folks. I was hoping to talk to the sheriff and ask him what his definition of is a gun a firearm. And that's where I think the solution lies, in that the laws that were passed were regulating firearms. And if you look back to the original law, the definition of a firearm is I believe a rifle under 18 inches in length, barrel, or 16 inches barrel length, or a shotgun, smooth bore that will fire a smooth bore rifle that will fire shotgun type ammunition under 18 inches in length. And they were able to pass that law, according to my understanding, it was back in 1934, when these gangsters were going into banks and robbing banks, and they could hide a short shotgun under their trench coat or whatever. A long shotgun over 18 inches was very difficult.
Sure. So you're thinking they might be playing word games with us here and, you know, doing like a hoax ban on firearms, but it doesn't technically apply? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying explicitly, a firearm is only a smooth bore rifle under 18 inches in length. Anything 18 inches or over, as long as it has micro grooving in it.
Rifling?
All pistols are not firearms. Not one single pistol that has rifling in it is not a firearm. Not one single rifle over 16 inches barrel length is not considered a firearm. None of them are.
Well, that's a very interesting angle there, Stephen. I'm glad you brought that up. I guess we'd have to get to some attorneys to help parse the language to see if there's any legitimacy to that. But, you know, I'll take my 1 in 8 twist barrel any day over a smooth barrel, right? So I'm glad we have rifling. Otherwise, we would not have range, right? We would not have stable ballistics in flight. So thank you for your call. That's a good point. We got to go to a quick break. And straight ahead, as we return here on the Alex Jones Show, we'll continue with your calls and additional news, and one more guest coming up also at the bottom of this hour. So stay with us. We'll be right back, and don't forget to visit Infowars.com for today's breaking news. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams filling in for Alex today. I'm the editor of naturalnews.com and a frequent contributor to Infowars. I guess I'm the unofficial crew member here, is the way my role has been described. I'm going to blow through a bunch of news here for you, give you some headlines just as quickly as possible, and then we're going to go to Jon Rappoport, who has an update with us on the psychiatric police state and also what I'm calling the era of thought crimes now being a reality, as psychiatrists are given Judge Dredd type of authority to strip citizens of their constitutional rights. So that's coming up. But here we go. Here are the stories for today. Rapper Lupe Fiasco thrown off stage during pre-inauguration event after anti-Obama rant. You see, you can't have an opinion anymore if it's against the state. Obama averages 49% approval rating in the first term. Some of the lowest approval ratings that we've seen in history, except for perhaps Jimmy Carter. CBS News, political director, Obama must destroy the Republican Party. You see, it's all about destroying the opposition, not about helping America. It's not about doing what's right. It's not about making America a great nation. It's about destroying the Republican Party and disarming your guns at the same time, because, of course, that's one of the big goals out there. Remember, he gave us a phone, and he's going to do more. All right, Condoleezza Rice joins CBS News as a contributor. Well, there we go. Go from government, gun-grabbing government, right into the media. You'll fit right in, Condoleezza. The Weekly Standard, inaugural ball ticket prices slashed by 50%. They just couldn't fill the chairs at the Nazi-style Führer inauguration, kinging of the emperor with no clothes event that we saw earlier this morning. A significantly smaller inaugural crowd expected. That's old news now, since that already happened. Biden says he's proud to be president. Yeah, and we're proud to have a person with his level of sanity in the White House. Yes, we are. Public inauguration just for show cost taxpayers $100 million. Check it out. Is this a record, guys, or what? We're just blowing through this news. This has got to be a record. I tell you, keep score. We'll have a scoreboard back here. How much news can we get through? Establishment media announces the second coming of Obama. Oh, the Christ, the King, the Obama. Heil! Heil Obama! Barack Obama, the Lance Armstrong of politics. The federal government now requires that we ask you the following personal questions. This is from Zero Hedge, and this is, whoa, what is this? If we fail to ask these questions, we are subject to a fine? I'm sorry, I don't understand the context of this. This is Obamacare prying into our personal lives even more. This is the danger of getting into the news stack. You never know what's in there. It's kind of like Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. News is like a box of randomness. Obama, I did it. As he was sworn in, his daughter says, "Good job, Daddy." The president responded, "I did it," because it's all about him. Yes, no dignity, no philosophy, no history, no principle, no ethics. All about Obama. He gave us a phone. He's going to do more. Tony Cartolucci on PrisonPlanet.com. The greatest way to dishonor Martin Luther King is to compare him with U.S. President Barack Obama. I couldn't agree more. Martin Luther King, a man of substance, excuse me. A man of substance, a man of principle, a man who actually stood for the people, versus Barack Obama, a deceiver, a lying person, someone who knowingly fabricates things, says he won't pass the NDAA and then does, says he's trying to help Americans and then he destroys the American economy, destroys jobs. Come on, there's no comparison. And by the way, I hope you know that that's proof that it's never about skin color around here. It's about principle. As Alex Jones says, if there was a black president who protected the Bill of Rights, we would love that guy. We would all love that guy. Where is that guy? We got to find that guy. Wouldn't that be great? To quote Jamie Foxx, how great is that to find a black president that supports the Bill of Rights? How great is that? That's what we need. But we haven't found one yet. In fact, we haven't found a white president that supports the Bill of Rights. What am I talking about? That would be great, too. That's Ron Paul, you know? How great would that be to have Ron Paul in? All right, continuing. And by the way, Jon Rappoport will be joining us here in just a couple of minutes. I think I'm finally starting to have fun here today. I was kind of down in the first couple of hours. Not down, but serious, you know? I usually come in here more jovial, joking around, more flippant. Sorry to use those big words for those of you who are public school educated like I was. Only the homeschoolers will understand that. They don't have to look it up. All right, I'm just joking. Don't take it all too seriously, folks. Americans not in labor force has increased 8.3 million more Americans jobless under Obama. Thank you, and he's going to do more. Flu season fuels debate over paid sick time laws in New York. They're trying to pass laws that would mandate companies to pay for employees to stay home sick. That way, they're saying, well, they wouldn't come to work sick and spread the flu. Hey, why don't you just give out vitamin D at work? It's like a couple cents a day. Why don't you just give them some vitamin D, and then they won't miss work, and they won't get the flu, and they don't even need the vaccine shot? But no, that just makes too much sense for America today. Another battle over taxes in the Washington Post. The economic collapse says the sovereign debt bubble will continue to expand, bang, until the system explodes. That's the big elephant in the room that people aren't talking about. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. This system is coming down real soon. The global debt collapse, domino effect system leading to, I mean, isn't this probably why they're trying to take our guns? Because they know they're going to have to declare martial law in the economic collapse. That's what's going on. I mean, that's at least a reasonable assessment of what's going on. A couple more headlines here. Nevada legislator Brooks arrested, accused of threatening assembly leader. Why? Okay, whatever. California's Hispanic population to outnumber whites by the end of 2013. Hey, why don't we have a Hispanic president that supports the Bill of Rights? That would be awesome, too. That would be great. I don't care what skin color you are. If you support the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, you're my hero. That's all there is to it. You can be Asian, you can be Hispanic, you can be Norwegian, as far as I'm concerned. You come here, you become a citizen, you qualify correctly, not with fake documents, no. Can't have all those layers in your birth certificate. You become president, you support the Constitution, you're my hero. That's it. That's all there is to it. CIA drone strikes will get passed in the counterterrorism playbook, officials say. Yeah, because the rules don't apply to the unmanned drone strikes that are blowing up little children. You want to end violence against children? Stop shooting them with missiles. Just a little bit of logic for those who don't yet get it. Fan fight outside Georgia Dome leaves one injured. I think he got stabbed in the neck. Guess you got to ban necks. There's no end. There's no end to it. He gets punched in the face. You got to ban fists, right? Or ban knives. TSA toys with the surfs at Lou Rockwell blog, saying it's retiring some of its porno scanners, naked body scanners from the airports. But as we talked about earlier, that is a hoax because they're being replaced by millimeter wave scanners, just another way to irradiate your body. So that is the blow-through news cycle. I hope we covered some territory for you there. Now joining us by Skype is Jon Rappoport with an update on the psychiatric police state in America. Let me give you a bit of background on that. The article that I wrote on this is that psychiatrists are now given Judge Dredd authority to strip citizens of their constitutional rights just because they say so. So Jon Rappoport wrote one of the first articles on this about the psychiatric police state in New York. And now joining us is Mr. Rappoport from NoMoreFakeNews.com. John, any new developments in this realm of thought crimes in America?
Well, the thought crime aspect is the big one, Mike, that you pointed out in your article. To me, it's all an extension of all of the surveillance that's been building up over the last 10, 15 years. You know, we've got the drones, we can spy on you, you've got smart appliances in the home that can tell where you are, what you're doing. We've got intercepts on all emails, phone calls, purchases. We've got everybody under surveillance in America. The only thing that was missing was, what are you thinking? That was the last piece of the puzzle. Well, and yeah. That piece is being put into place because the psychiatrists are now the new high-priced predator drones of thought.
Psychiatric drones. But the real thing about this, though, if you think about it, is that now they can set up a catch-22 where if you believe in the Constitution, you're mentally ill. If you think you need to own a gun, there's something wrong with you. So now just the mere expression of wanting to exercise the rights and freedoms that you should have under a republic gets you diagnosed with a mental illness. Classic catch-22.
Totally. You're totally trapped as a patient, although why you would want to see a psychiatrist in the first place is beyond me. But
but John, they're going to mandate it. That's the thing. I mean, right now we can say no, but soon they're going to mandate it.
Well, they're definitely going to try, and it's going to be part of Obamacare, and that there are going to be many more occasions, let's put it this way, where they will be able to order you to a court-ordered psychiatrist for any reason they want to. And then once you're there, according to the New York state law that's just been passed, if the psychiatrist feels that you represent a potential harm to yourself or to others, he has to report you to law enforcement. At which point, if you have a gun, they come to your house and they take it. Whatever weapons they take. And, of course, you can't buy another weapon.
But the point is, who hasn't ever had some kind of thought, not an action, but a thought, a moment, a fleeting moment of anger, the ideation of violence against some other person or some organization, you know, your boss at work, whatever.
That's what I'm getting to, because the psychiatrist is in charge of making that assessment.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody's had some kind of fleeting thought. That doesn't make you criminal.
Saying he just does.
All right, we're going to go to break. We're going to go to break. We'll be right back after this, continuing with Jon Rappoport and the psychiatric police state in America. This is the Alex Jones Show, Infowars.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back with all that and more calls straight ahead. Okay, yeah, we're back on the Alex Jones Show. Thank you for continuing with us. It's been an interesting show already, and there's more yet ahead for us here. Broadcasting from Austin, Texas, this is Mike Adams sitting in for Alex Jones today. Alex comes back sometime today, and he'll be here running the show and running his show tomorrow, so I'll be listening in. That's the one thing that I don't like about hosting the show is I don't get to hear Alex do the show. I mean, I actually like to hear other people's thoughts on these things, and And Alex is great at understanding the historical context and the angles that you don't normally think of right away. So I always like his analysis. I'm sure he's got it. I'm surprised he hasn't called in, guys. he must be out of cell phone range, because he often calls in with some additional comments. In any case, we've got Jon Rappoport with us right now from NoMoreFakeNews.com with comments on the psychiatric police state in America. So, John, it looks like psychiatrists who were actually part of the problem and their drugs, the drugging of children, they're perhaps the largest contributing source to the problem. Now they're going to be put in control and given more power in reaction to the very problem they caused, the school shootings.
Yeah, they're totally off the hook now. Nobody is going to take up the question in the official media of all these drugs that cause people to kill other people, like Prozac and Zoloft and so forth. That's all going to go by the wayside completely. But let me run down what was going to happen in the office. You see, the psychiatrist is sitting there, the patient comes in. Psychiatrist says, so what's the problem? And the patient begins to talk. And the psychiatrist is going to inject at some point and say, well, what about your fantasies? Have you ever had thoughts of, say, getting revenge? Well, yeah, sure. Against whom? I said, well, what thoughts did you have? Well, I wanted to destroy, well, I had a dream once about destroying the school where I went, when I was 9 years old. I see. Now, At this point, you see, you're done. Because the psychiatrist can now file a report saying potentially a harm to others, is talking about blowing up things, and so we need to see if this guy has a gun. And all of a sudden, this guy gets a visit at his house and says, what are you talking about? I was talking about a dream I had when I was 9 years old. We don't care about that. Get out of the way. We're going to search the house, and you're on the list, and blah, 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 blah. It's now, as you wrote, a thought crime, and this is how the psychiatrist brings it out of a person. You could do it. I could do it. Anybody on the street could do it. You just engage in a little chit-chat and say, have you ever had any, thoughts about violence? I mean, we all have, certainly. Well, sure. I once wanted to blow up the planet. I remember we were drunk at a party and we were talking to, and all of a sudden, you're done. You're a thought criminal, and no more rights.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is coming to, Jon Rappoport. And, the problem with this is that, these kids, most of the school shooters, right, they have been bullied as children. I mean, in many of the cases, they were bullied, and they go back to the school to take revenge on those who bullied them, powered by the psychiatric drugs that the psychiatrist has given them. So in their minds, they do have an anger, they do have a revenge, but that alone is not enough to trigger the trigger. It's got to be the drugs that separate them from reality that really makes it go over, that takes it beyond the realm of ideation or imagination into the realm of taking action. And at that point, the shooters feel like they're in a dream state or a video game. They don't feel like it's real. So that's what the drugs do. But, yeah, go ahead.
This has been pointed out, a conversation that I had some years ago with Dr. Peter Bregan, who is the conscience of psychiatry, that not only do these drugs, like the SSRI antidepressants and other psychiatric drugs, even like Ritalin or Adderall, push kids over the edge into actual homicide, but they can also stimulate, as he told me, grandiose plans for destruction. So It isn't just immediate impulse. This is, let's get to the blueprint, the drawing board. Let's paint the scenario here. Let's work up the whole scene on how we're going to do this. These drugs also promote that kind of behavior in kids that, they feel angry, but ordinarily would do nothing, absolutely nothing.
Maybe Eric Holder is on these drugs. Maybe the people in Washington who are plotting, conspiring to overthrow the Bill of Rights and disarm the American people, maybe they're on these drugs. I think a lot of them must be.
You bet. And why don't we know? Let's have a list. What drugs, God forbid the list is going to be incredibly long, is Joe Biden on? What list are all...
What drug is Joe Biden not on? Are you kidding me, man? That dude's so far gone. You mean President Biden?
All the people in the House of Representatives and the Senate, what drugs are they on? What prescription drugs? What drugs?
Hey, we We got to go to break, John. Sorry to cut you off. We got to go to break. But good questions. What drugs are our elected political leaders on? Because a lot of them are smoking crack, I think. We'll be right back on the Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. You got to wonder, when has the government ever proposed that a solution to any problem could be solved by having less government? Never. Never. The solution is never less government. The solution is never more individual freedom, less intrusion in your lives. And now, in the wake of the Sandy Hook shooting, about which there are many, many questions, including questions about possible multiple shooters, we have the government proposing new solutions, always involving taking more power away from you and putting it into the hands of the very people who are causing the very problems under which we are all suffering. And in this case, it's the psychiatrist, and Jon Rappoport joins us, continuing. He's the creator of NoMoreFakeNews.com. And to lead off this section, and we will take some calls, too, in this section, in this segment. John, here's what I want to hit you with right now. It used to be that psychiatrists and psychologists were, at least, they were advocates of the patient, or at least they pretended to be. You know, they were in your corner. They're on your team. They're trying to help you solve your problems with confidentiality. You know, you can tell me anything. Tell me what's wrong. You tell me your greatest fears, your fantasies, your challenges. We'll help you solve it. That's been the marketing line of psychiatry and psychology. Now, it's different. We're snitches for Obama. We're snitches for the government. Whatever you tell us in private conversations, we're going to fill out a report and send it to the feds, and they're going to use that to take away your rights. Now they are the secret police. The psychiatrists are secret police snitches for the unconstitutionally operated federal government. Am I wrong about that, or is that what it's come to?
It's absolutely right. And the American Psychiatric Association has just issued a statement applauding the whole move toward greater gun control. So they're patting themselves on the back because they're saying, yeah, we like this snitch role that we're in now. We think it's a good idea. And even the psychiatrists who are less insane than the other psychiatrists, think about what they're going to go through. They're sitting there with a patient who says to them, you know, I'm very angry at my father. I mean, that's a statement that a psychiatrist heard, you know, maybe 100,000 times in his career. But all of a sudden, this guy is going to stop and think, what happens if I don't report this patient?
Exactly.
And then later, he goes out and he kills his father.
That's exactly it. They're going to report every little thing
then
to cover themselves.
I'm done, so I'm going to report everybody and everything that I possibly can.
So, essentially, the only thing you can say to a psychiatrist now is, oh, life is great. Everything's wonderful. Everything's fine, peachy, no problem. And if you're going to say that, why go to a psychiatrist?
I just want one of those little drugs that you've got. I mean, I feel great, but I think I could feel a little better, and I've read about Prozac. Maybe you could, you know, write me a script. That's all they want to say, and the psychiatrist actually thinks that's great.
Well, of course, yeah, they're getting the kickbacks and everything.
Dispensing drugs, and if they can shrink an appointment down from a half hour to 10 minutes, they're going to run more people through every day. Yeah, you're right. Nobody's going to want to say anything.
But now,
sure, fine, no problem.
But the bigger point here is that we have ignored, I mean, the nation has ignored the problem. What causes the outbursts of violence that result in fatalities of innocent children? Psychiatric drugs. A culture of violent movies and video games perhaps plays a role, but definitely psychiatric drugs. So Obama didn't mention psychiatric drugs in any of his 23 executive orders. Psychiatrists are given more power. By any account, we're going to have more school shootings because we're going to have more psychiatrists giving out more drugs to people who refuse to address the real issues they're having because they don't want to tell the truth now because the psychiatrist is going to snitch on them.
No question about it. There are going to be more of these killings and murders because more of the drugs that cause the killings and murders are going to be dispensed. But here's another factor that shows you where Obama's head is really at. If he really wanted to end gun violence in America, he would stand up at the podium and he'd say, look at this map, folks. This shows you where the gun violence is taking place in America, where the people are being killed in greatest numbers, and who's committing the crimes. Gangs, for example, cities. These are the facts. We have to face them. because my motivation as your president is to end gun violence, and therefore this becomes our new mission. Did he do anything faintly, vaguely resembling that? Of course not, because it's not gun violence that he wants to end. It's gun ownership that he wants to end.
Good point, yeah. And also, your approach is logical. You know, you want to look at the causes of the thing you're trying to stop. But you got to understand, and I know you understand this, but I'm speaking to the listeners, Washington doesn't want logic. They want an emotional, an invocation of an irrational, emotional, knee-jerk response that doesn't stand up in any kind of actual critical thinking. They just want you to react. And the reaction is blame an inanimate object, blame a gun, refuse to look at the psych drugs that altered the mind, that pulled the trigger, that shot the child. You know, it's like you're asking people to think. And in America today, that's too much, apparently, at least on the radical left. You can't ask them to think. They're not supposed to think. They're supposed to react. They're supposed to leap to conclusions, and they're supposed to worship their king, Obama, who's going to do more.
And it's all for the children. Keep that in mind.
Well, of course, yeah, high-fiving the kids.
Even though these drugs that are going to be dispensed in greater numbers than ever, the psychiatric drugs that cause violence and murder, are going to result in more children being murdered. That's not part of the argument. That's not something we should think about. That's too logical. We can't approach that. What we just have to keep saying is it's all for the Sandy Hook children. That's why we're taking everybody's guns. It's totally irrelevant, doesn't make any sense, but that's the emotion of the moment. That's,
well, yeah, and
move people.
Look at Obama's logic. He said, if we can save one child's life, then I think he said something like, we owe it to ourselves to try. What he means is any cost in society is worth reducing one death. Well, by that logic, we should ban all swimming pools, ban all trampolines, ban all automobiles. In fact, you should ban being born. Which I guess they do with all their abortions, but they should ban childbirth because that can result in a child dying. So therefore, ban childbirth. That's Obama's logic.
Ban thought. Ban all thought, because obviously thought precedes action, and some actions result in harm. So let's have a drug that the psychiatrists can give us that will stop people from thinking altogether. And then that will be the final solution. We just have zombies around the landscape and everything is wonderful.
Yeah, what are some of these drugs called, guys? Throughout sci-fi movies, there have been lots of different names, and fiction also, different names for these drugs that, quote, normalize the range of human emotions and thought. I like the movie The Island with Ewan McGregor. That's a great film to review right now because of the medical police state that we're under. And I believe they were all on drugs there in that movie as well, and given a false reality to tell them a fairy tale so that they wouldn't resist. And that's what we're seeing right now with Sandy Hook. Also, speaking of that, John, I want to take a call from Robert in Georgia, who apparently has comments on Sandy Hook and the Second Amendment. So, Robert, in Georgia, you're on the air. Go ahead, sir.
Awesome. Thank you very much for taking the call. And I've got a lot on my heart. The sloppiness. I mean, I thought I was livid about 9/11, and here you have Sandy Hook, and not one person down there, not one child died. I've been researching it, and everybody died down there. If you continue looking at the research and how they've done all that, nobody's died. They're actors. I'm not kidding you. They are actors down there, and this is the worst one I've seen.
Wait a minute. So just let me stop you for a second. So I just want to make sure I understand your position. So you're saying that no children died at all in Sandy Hook?
No, sir. I've been on this for hours on end, and them people were actors. And you can go down there. We need to get a phone number going down there to Connecticut and Sandy Hook and start calling them police officers.
Well, no, look, I want to say I agree that there are a lot of questions about Sandy Hook, and John, I want your comments on this as well. They haven't shown the video footage, for example. I'm convinced that there was no AR-15 used in the shooting whatsoever. I haven't perhaps investigated as much as you have, caller, but I'm very skeptical of the idea that nobody died there. But it's a good question to raise. We should always ask questions. So, John, what are your thoughts on that scenario that the caller is explaining?
Well, I just wrote an article about this morning, but, these people have unearthed tremendously interesting video clips of interviews with survivors at Sandy Hook. And they look like actors, some of them. I've seen that, yeah.
You place on it,
is that's under question. But there's no question that what we're looking at here are people who have been, in one way or another, programmed out of being able to feel genuine human emotion in the midst of a horrendous tragedy.
Well, let me go back to the caller, because Robert, what in your mind is the best evidence that exists today that, as you say, no one was killed there?
Okay, Robbie Parker, and for one, when a news channel does it, they use your proper name, Robert. My name's Robert. My family used to call me Robbie. For them to call this fella Robbie Parker and not use his real name, and he's laughing and cutting up, and then if you haven't seen it yet.
I've seen it.
Yeah, and it's sad. In all of the interviews, there is no remorse. And one thing here I wanted to really stress is that truth is not threatened by a lie, but a lie is threatened by the truth. And I hope that they're just getting so sloppy on this that it's going to be exposed. People, if I was living about 9/11, this is literally sick. And I was in surgery that day. That morning on the 14th, I was fixing to go into surgery, and it started all happening. And I could tell it right from there. Things were really bad.
Well, I wish I lived in that area so I could ask people I know. I mean, caller, in one sense, you're right that we can never really know what is theater. Could they stage something like that with all actors? Theoretically, possibly, but it seems like there must be real people out there who lost real children, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm still being suckered in. John, your thoughts? I mean, how do you know what's true? That's the bottom line.
Well, this is the point, because everything comes through television.
Right. How do we know?
There are only certain people that are going to be interviewed. For example, any parent who is outraged, angry about the investigation, who wants to get to the bottom of it, who is close to being actually catatonic because they have lost a child, who is really killed, who is incredibly angry at the press for trying to approach them for an interview in the wake of the death of their children. None of these people are going to be interviewed on television. You're not going to see that. And so what we see is this section of people that are appropriate for the scenario that's being created by the major media that is independent of what actually happened there in Sandy Hook. And so we get this entirely insane picture of who these people in Sandy Hook are.
Well, and plus we've got all the tie-ins with actual fiction theater, you know, the Batman movie, the Sandy Hook on the map with the strike zone circled right around it. It actually looks like the school on the map in Batman. I'm not saying, okay, maybe it could be coincidence, but you get enough of these and it starts to become very suspicious. And that's where I am on this, folks, is asking questions. I haven't reached all the conclusions or anything, but asking intelligent questions is what we're supposed to do. Members of the press are supposed to ask questions, but we've got CNN and others just shoving ideas down your mind without asking any questions. That's what I have trouble with.
There's a difference between a staged event that actually happens, you know, people are killed, but the perpetrator is not the person that is blamed by law enforcement and the media. That's a whole scenario that I've explored in depth, that Lanza was not actually the shooter, he was the patsy. Then you have the idea that nothing happened at all, that the whole thing was a gigantic hoax and nobody died, for which I would see personally no real motive. If people would go that far in staging an event, they would have no compunction about actually killing people, children, adults, whatever. Well,
it's like I think Larry Pratt said this, if they would stage Fast and Furious, they would stage anything. But, for example, in the Gabrielle Giffords shooting in Arizona, I was able to actually make a phone call to a close personal friend of Gabby, and to verify sort of what went on. I actually was a distant friend of Gabby. She was a wonderful woman, by the way, just a wonderful representative for the people there. Even though she was in the Democratic Party, she was just a very wonderful person. And so I'm convinced that that shooting took place. There's no question about it. The question is what caused that shooting. But in Sandy Hook, we don't have one well-known person that we can call and confirm. I mean, there are way too many questions that we can't confirm, and I personally don't know anybody in that area to confirm it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody can call in, and phone lines are open, 1-800-259-9231 if you've got proof one way or the other on Sandy Hook. How about that? Let's put that out there, and we'll jump to your calls first. Fair enough? Sound good, John?
Sure.
All right, because I know you want to get to the bottom of this too, but...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I've looked into Robbie Parker to the degree that there are articles about him in Utah newspapers like the Deseret News, that his family is from there, that he had a family, that this guy is not just some actor that they brought in from, the sky to portray somebody that doesn't exist at all.
Right.
So, got to think about this. If you had a group of 15 or 20 or 50 or 75 actors that were brought in to stage a complete hoax, don't you think that somebody out there in the world who actually knows one of these people and said, hey, you see that guy who's supposed to be a fireman or a cop or a parent? That's Marty. Don't you remember Marty? We went to school together. Hey, I got to put up a YouTube about Marty. This is ridiculous. Don't you think that would have proliferated by now? Unless somebody's going to say, no, these 100 people were, kidnapped 50 years ago or 20 years ago, and they were raised in
they were raised in a psych ward. No, I suspect the real story here is kids were killed, but they were killed by multiple shooters who were put up to this, and that's why they killed Adam Lanza at the end, so he couldn't talk. That's what I suspect. Very similar to Aurora.
Mike, because I know you know a lot about guns. I mean, for a while there, and I still think they're saying that Lanza killed himself with a rifle.
Well, yeah, you can do that, yeah.
Is that an easy thing to do, is to turn a rifle around on yourself?
Well, I mean, the other kids did it in the 0-day shooting. They did that right on camera in the school. They put the rifles on the butt stocks of the rifles on the ground vertically, and then they just put their chins over the rifles or a shotgun in one case, I think, and pulled the trigger. So, yeah, kids know how to do that. I mean, if they're violent like that, psychotic kids, they can do that.
Well, I agree with you. I think so far from everything that I've seen, this kid was a patsy, and there were professionals who did the job, and that opens the issue up completely to the whole aftermath, which is grab the guns.
Yeah, clearly whether it was real or staged, the issue is that it was a justification to take the guns, and that makes no sense. Now, I want to go to some more callers after this break that's coming up here. So William and Cindy and Ken, stay on the line there. We'll get to you right after this break that is coming up shortly. And Jon Rappoport, of course, continues to join us from nomorefakenews.com. What are we doing here? We're asking questions about Sandy Hook. And if asking questions is bad, then America is lost, okay? This is the job of the media. CNN should be asking questions instead of towing the party line, all right? The mainstream media should be asking questions instead of leaping to wrong conclusions. Let's ask questions and find out what really happened. A lot more straight ahead. Stay with us. In regards to that last call, I think we have to be very cautious if we are to have any credibility whatsoever in questioning the official story on events like Sandy Hook. We've got to be careful. And that caller probably had good intention, and maybe he knows more about it than I do. I'm not sure. But we have to be careful not to leap one bridge too far, so to speak. Otherwise, we all get painted as complete loons. We have to ask good questions, look for what we can actually substantiate. Where is there video evidence? For example, with the AR-15 rifle not being used in the shooting, they haven't released any video footage. Why wouldn't they release video footage if the kid was carrying an AR-15 around shooting kids? They would love to release that footage. So we can say logically and rationally, as skeptical journalists, the fact that they haven't released that footage probably means they don't have it. That's a rational thing. But we got to be careful not to go too far, and there are also agents of disinfo out there that try to get us to go one step too far to make us look stupid. I'm not saying that was that caller. That caller sounds like he was informed in his research and was putting forth what he believes. But we just have to be cautious is all I'm saying. Let's go with what we actually have evidence for and not allow anyone to pull us one step too far down the road of things that didn't really necessarily happen. So John, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, can't we, there's a lot that we can actually, like on 9/11, there's so much evidence that Building 7 was taken down intentionally, not hit by an airplane and so on. On all of these issues, there's a lot of evidence for us to stand with, right?
Huge amount of evidence. And I go back to something you said before the break. These The reason that people think, oh, these are crazy questions is because they've been conditioned to the media that never asks these questions. Yeah. They should be asking the questions. I mean, what we're talking about here is what CNN and Fox and NBC, ABC, CBS should be doing all the time. Yeah. They should be saying, how did the kid get in the school? Okay, which we want to know. We don't want just some little brush off here. I mean, you had a fairly heavy door there, didn't you? What kind of glass was there? Did he talk over video? They have a video system. He's not supposed to get in unless he identifies himself. He's wearing all these weapons and so forth. Somebody let him in. Let's dig into this. Let's not stop. Let's be relentless until we get the answers.
Well, right. Let's dig into this the way the media used to dig into Nixon during the Nixon administration and Washington Post.
You bet. Absolutely. You see? So now people say, well, the people that ask these kinds of questions are crazy. Why is that? Because people are hypnotized into believing everything the police says is true.
Oh, I know. That's the danger. That's the danger of where we are, is that you're considered crazy if you even behave like a responsible, intelligent journalist. I mean, journalism has become a joke in this nation because the people working for CNN, for example, refuse to ask real questions.
I heard a press conference, 3 minutes outside, chief of police at Sandy Hook, and the reporters started asking questions about the guns. What was the gun found in the trunk again? Was it the Bushmaster? Was it the thing? Was it that? And was it 2 handguns that he had, and so forth? And the police chief danced around that. The reporters were starting to zero in on the fact that there were contradictory stories. And then they all backed away like it was, hey, time for a picnic. Let's go to a picnic. Whatever the chief says, okay, forget about it. There was nothing left. It was all a travesty.
Crazy.
To go where, and then they stopped.
All right. Well, look, we're going to go into overdrive here today on the broadcast on the Alex Jones Show. And the callers, please stay on the line. I promise I'm going to go to you right after this roughly 1-minute break. William, Stephen, and others, we are going to go to your calls after we come back, and we'll go into overdrive. And John, please stay with us. But for those of you who joined us today, I thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support. Keep asking intelligent questions, okay? Right is on our side. We have the ethics. We have the morals. We have the Constitution. We will not be defeated. Take care. All right, we're going to take as many calls as we can in the next 5 minutes during this overdrive segment. Let's go to Greg in Utah. Greg, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm your only Utah affiliate here, by the way.
All right.
Anyway, I had a conversation with Richard Mack on another program here, and it was a good conversation. And people are always wondering, you know, we got all this talk radio, we know all the news, and it just keeps getting hashed and rehashed. There's got to be some solutions. Well, he talked about a solution that everybody can do. I don't just mean going out and buying guns like has been going on. I mean, what people need to do is they need to contact their sheriff and say, hey, look, we're going to put something together. This is going to be made public. How do you stand on the Second Amendment? Are you going to keep these people from, you know, are you going to protect our rights? We elected you for this. It's going to be made public. Let them know it's going to be made public. I mean, fortunately, I've got the use of the radio station here, but others, like yourself, have the opportunity to put it out on their webpage, you know, their sites.
Well, that's good to hold them accountable right now, see where they stand.
Absolutely, because these are elected officials.
Yes.
And if people don't like what they're hearing, they're out of there. So, but in my conversation, for instance, here in Millard County, Utah, the sheriff made the comment that he wasn't a constitutional sheriff. I want clarification.
That he was not a constitutional sheriff?
Yeah.
What? What does that mean?
Exactly. Are you not willing to uphold the Second Amendment or any of the Constitution? I want clarification. I know there's sheriffs out there calling themselves constitutional sheriffs that are involved in keeping their oaths. We want to know. You know,
all right.
And let's make it public.
Yeah, well said, Greg. Good luck to you out there in Utah. Great suggestion. Let's do that. Let's do that all across the nation. Call your local sheriff. Find out where they stand on the Constitution. If they're not constitutional sheriffs, then they're in violation of their own oaths of office. They should be kicked out immediately. But let's take some more calls. I want to get John's comment on this as well. William in Connecticut. William, thank you for holding and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Well, there's a lot of information that is not made public, and that leads us to speculate and form theories. I'm calling because I have information that I believe is legit. Adam Lanza, he told his mom that if she put him in a special school, he was going to kill her in her sleep, and he did. There's supposed to be a video about Adam Lanza going to the high school first, but because he saw a patrol car outside, he moved into the little school, to the other school. So I don't know why they are not saying that.
Well,
there was a meeting,
John, go ahead. Yeah.
That said that Lanza had threatened his mother, or he was very angry at her because she was going to have him institutionalized, and that was at one point given as a motive for the killing. But then later on, questions were raised whether or not that actually ever happened. That turned out to be, as I recall, somebody's opinion rather than a direct observation of what the mother was threatening to do and Adam's reaction to that. So,
all right, good.
I don't know about that.
Good call, though. Thank you, call. Let's go to one more call. Ken in Texas, you're on the air. You got about 30 seconds. Go ahead, sir.
I lost it.
Are you there, Ken? All right, Ken. Let's go to Cindy in Oregon. Cindy, real quick. Just a few seconds.
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for taking my call. I'm going to make this quick. It's not specifically about Sandy Hook, but I did want to make a comment on the Second Amendment. I want to bring something to you and Alex's listeners' attention that I and many others know is very important, and is actually, many people feel it's actually grossly underreported.
All right, hurry up.
If not suppressed by Alex. Okay, it is an article, January 21st, 2013, in Godfather Politics by Ted Cron, called "The Vatican Wrongly Supports Obama's Gun Grab."
All right, that's all we have time for. You have to search that, folks. Thanks for joining us. This is Mike Adams here on the Alex Jones Show. Alex is back tomorrow.